It's early morning, I'm on the beach. That can only mean one thing, we're going diving. I'm Cayman Jason, this is the way I see it. Welcome guys, welcome to the west side of Grand Cayman. Today we're going to be diving the shipwreck, the Ex USS Kittiwake, with our scuba model Siggy. Today what we're going to do is we're going to place her in different areas along the outside of the wreck, and we're going to shoot her from with a really wide angle from a great distance and give the viewer some really amazing perspective of just how small she is next to this massive underwater shipwreck. Are you ready?
I'm very ready.
Let's go do it. So this is a super fun wreck site. If you've ever had a chance to dive it as an underwater photographer, it's really, really great. So here I am not making sure I got all the little airdrops off of my camera from jumping in the water. And there's me doing my standard custom white balance. Now I've got Siggy's on the bottom. You can see her bubbles coming up there. And I really like this angle of this shipwreck. And I think this is important. If you're visiting a shipwreck or a dive site, a very popular dive site like the Ex USS Kittiwake, make sure you talk to a local photographer. They're going to be able to tell you the best angles with which to capture models or fish on the shipwreck. I've shot this wreck so many times. It's one of my favorite dive sites. I know exactly where I'm going to place her. I want to put her down in front to the left of the ship and down in front to the right of the ship. And I like to shoot down at kind of like this 45-degree angle. Now this is the first shot that I captured here, and you can see she's sort of swimming by the front of the ship. You can see her bubbles rising through the image. Now you can also see a little bit of my my lens in the reflection of the dome port, which is, again, I've talked about this in previous episodes. It's just something that you're going to get when you shoot up toward the sun. But overall, I like the image. We're at f10, 1/100th of a second at ISO 250, and I like this. I like the setup. I like this image. So here I wanted to just point out, you can see that as the Kittiwake is sort of heeled over on her port side, she creates this massive shadow, and right now Siggy is in the shadow. And if I shoot her in that shadow, she's going to be lost in this image. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to communicate with her. She needs to move out away from the shipwreck. So I need to separate my subject from the background. And I've talked about this before. You want to always make sure that you don't ever shoot down with your subject over the top of the reef. Now I can shoot down over the top of this white sand flat because there's a lot of contrast there. But if she's in that shadow, she's going to get lost in the image. So here's the image I got. She's swimming back in the other direction across the front of the shipwreck. She's basically lined up almost dead center in the image, and her bubbles, as they rise up toward the surface, sort of balance out the image. We've got about the first 3/4 of the ship in that shot, and I'm pretty happy with that. So because we've dived this ship so many times, we knew exactly in advance what shots we were going to try to get. So I'm going to motor back across the top of the shipwreck on the Dive X Cuda. She's going to swim back to the back of the ship, and then here we are again. Very similar situation as to that second shot. She is sort of right in the middle of the ship. Now, if I shoot her right there, she's going to be lost in the image. So what I need her to do, you can see now I'm just sort of waving her off, telling her to move back away from the ship. From my point of view up there, if I shoot her, she's going to be, that shipwreck is right behind her, and she's going to be lost in the image. So you always want to make sure that your model is separated from the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get her to come a little bit closer toward the reef, away from the shipwreck, over that white sand flat. And then here's the image that I shot. Now, I turned this one into a black and white, and I just want to stress that I don't use the black and white settings in Photoshop. I don't use black and white settings in my camera. I just shoot the image in RAW. And then what I do is I desaturate the colors. So in this image, I desaturated the blue. I think I maybe left some of the magentas, it looks like, in the image. I don't really recall. But what happens is if you desaturate the individual colors, then you can adjust the luminosity. So what I did was I desaturated the blue, and then I pulled the luminosity of the blue down. So it gives it this really mysterious look. And shipwrecks, by the way, are amazing subjects to flip into black and white. I always turn one or two of my shipwreck images into a black and white. It just gives it that mysterious feel, and it really lends itself well to this. So at this point, point in the shoot, I thought we were kind of done. So we're all three sort of motoring back across the Kittiwake on the scooter. And then, lo and behold, there is a barracuda right there on the crow's nest. And I absolutely love shooting these barracudas. They're there often. I didn't really think about it, but sure enough, we were passing by and there he is. So here's one of the images that I got. I shot back toward the stern, and I want to just take a second to point this out. It's always important when shooting a wreck that you get the beginning of the wreck or the end of the wreck. Never shoot in the middle of the wreck because the viewer doesn't have any point of reference as to where they are in this thing. So you can see there as I shot back toward the back of that wreck, you could see the end of it, and it sort of makes it make sense. So at this point in the dive, I'm trying to line up Siggy with this barracuda, and basically just told her to swim around behind it, and I'm going to sort of move around on my end and try to line the two up. Barracudas are fun subjects to shoot. They're pretty much fearless for the most part, so you can get pretty close. Now you can see I'm firing my strobes at him, and you'll notice that the metal around the frame of the shot here is a little bit warm, and that's because I've done a custom white balance with my strobes, and I'm a little bit too close to the shipwreck. If I would have backed out a little bit, it would have pulled some of that red out, but I'm pretty happy with it. I could have done that in post, but I just sort of wanted to show you guys what happens if you get a little bit too close with a custom white balance shooting strobes. You can see the red in the belly of the barracuda as well. So the image is a little bit warm there, but I do like the natural blue background, and I like where Siggy is right underneath him in the image. You also notice that she has a light in her hand, and that's from her being a very experienced scuba model. That light always adds like another little layer of interest to the image, so she'll oftentimes pull it out while I'm shooting her. I wanted to throw this last image in to just sort of reinforce what I was speaking about earlier with the shadow on the front of the boat and separating your subject from the background, and this is a perfect example of that. You can see that Siggy is nicely right above the center of the shipwreck, so she's well centered, but she's also away from the background, so she's basically placed in front of that blue water, and she stands out nicely. She's also got her light on like a good scuba model should. So she's really well represented in this image, and that light sort of helps your eye, it sort of draws your eye right to her when you look at the image. Now, obviously, this is a custom white balance. The sand is white like it should be. The surface water is white like the light is shining through it like it is. And then you've got those natural blue tones in mid-water, and that's sort of my signature style. This was F8 1/125th and ISO 200. I'll just say something quickly about shutter speed underwater. It doesn't really make a huge difference. Typically, I won't go below about 1/80th of a second unless I'm in a really super dark situation like inside that shipwreck and I want to keep my ISO low. So I'm almost always around 1/100th or 1/125th. It's a pretty standard baseline setting for me. So that's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to see more of my underwater photography, follow me on Instagram. I'm Cayman Jason. This is the way I see it.